Okay, good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, April 6th, 2022, and we're going to go ahead and get started running a little bit late here. So I just want to quickly review. Yesterday, I'm very proud that there were two really good trades to capitalize on. So let's go ahead and jump back to yesterday morning. And remember what we said coming into the open here. Let's go ahead and review that. We came in and we said that the overnight high up here at 45.8750 had a bunch of bearish divergences on pretty much every time frame. So we said if we can't get up and push through 87.25, the overnight high, and most importantly, get through the orange power level, the previous daily high, and this whole cluster up here that you can see I went ahead and highlighted, then we were going to be sellers, right? Because we were expecting a continuation to the downside because of that major bearish divergence on multiple time frames. Well, what ended up happening was we came up and we peaked above and failed. So I don't know how often this has happened for the last 2 or 3 months, but we've seen peak above and fail happen very, very often, right? We see this nice follow through to the upside. We pull back, we hold VWAP, we start pushing, we break the high that we need to get through, and then it's just a little peak and bam, the bears go ahead and slap it right back down. On our way up, I did call a long here, expecting again that push all the way up to test the overnight high. Not really the best area, ended up going sideways, so that trade didn't work out very well. But this right here was really one of the best trades of the week here. We pulled back right into, and I believe for this retracement scheme here, for that leg, it was right into the 38 retrace. We were right off the back end of the resistance from just after the open there. We had the VWAP, we had our major eye level, and we got a divergence on that little peak below the VWAP. I mean, everything was set up there. I called a long right off 74.25. We did pull back to 72.75, so a nice 1.5 point break of our entry, and then went right up to the high of the overnight session over here, 45.87. So got a really nice 15-point push out of that trade. And then once we failed, what I should have done and should have realized is we are doing exactly what I expected, which was that peak above and fail. So I should have started to get sell heavy, but I called another long off 74. Obviously didn't really work. It went about 2 or 3 points and then came back. And then we got sell heavy. The problem was once we broke below VWAP, it was very clear what we wanted to do, but the market just started going straight down with really no opportunities to jump in. You could have took the eye level right off the back end there. You see it peaked right into it and went ahead and continued going. But again, hindsight is always 20/20. So eventually, I gave the call to get short here right off the fast moving average at 45.61. It went to like 61.50, maybe 3 ticks against it. And then from there, we went another just about 10, 11, 12 points down. Now, once we got down here, you can see I called another aggressive short off the fast moving average again. But at that point, we had just gotten to the bottom of the move. Now, here's the thing. We were in the trade room here, and I warned everybody that we came down and started to make what looked like to be a double bottom, or maybe just another little peak below that bottom and then the bounce up. So right around 730, 740, my expectation was, even though we had a pretty strong sell-off, we were starting to get clues that this could bounce back up and go retrace the leg down. So we did get a little bit of follow through there, and then I don't think I gave any other trade calls, and then we were basically done as it was trying to break out, doing exactly what I expected it was going to do. And then, of course, it went sideways and didn't get enough strength to actually break out appreciably, and it just continued to sell off there going into the end of the day. And then, as you can see here, let's see if we can get to the overnight session. Beautiful little peak right as we broke through the previous daily low, a beautiful peak right back into it and right back into our minor eye level, and went ahead and failed down into 13, pushed up, pulled back right to 13 there and tried to come back up. And then, as you can see, the overnight session was just a major sell-off. So we did hold this 27 eye level in the overnight session and 2 tests, and went ahead and let's see if I can zoom in. Came up once, pulled back, came up back into it, and then failed. And then you can see in the overnight session here, we came right to 44.9675, one of our eye levels, and bounced off of it. Came up just in front of our next eye level, but hit the prediction point. And then look at this. It bounced off our eye level at 96.75. When it finally broke through, came up and used it as resistance to go ahead and sell off. And where did it sell off to? Our next eye level at 74.50. I'm telling you that these levels are just absolutely the only thing you really need if you want to be a successful trader. You could technically trade back and forth between all these zones and be very successful. So let's go ahead and get into this morning's pre-market. As you can see, pretty nice sell-off from yesterday. We're really far from the previous daily low up there at 45.08-ish. We have our orange power level again sitting right near one of our other daily power levels. So just like yesterday, just like we said yesterday, when we came up, when we were below the previous daily high and the orange power level, we said with the whole cluster here, we want to get through that to really have any type of faith in a bullish breakout. Same thing this morning down here. If we can't get through the previous daily low and the orange power level here, I mean, that's going to be a clue to continue to be heavy on the selling. So let's go ahead and go up and see what our higher time frames are saying. We're not going to look obviously at the ultra high time frames because not much has changed up there. It's all the same. There's no real new look. Although I will emphasize once again that our weekly bearish signal and our daily bearish signal from that high, when we called it back on the 29th going into the 30th, I believe, or going into the 1st of, well, it closed on the 1st of April, but it looks like we started to see what could potentially be that bearish signal back on March 29th. So we saw that the weekly had a potential bearish divergence. Remember, it was just pushing higher. RVI was pushing lower, but we didn't necessarily have a closed candle yet. So everything was pointing to a bearish divergence, and look at what ended up happening here. That was the high around 46.30, and right now we've pulled back all the way almost back to 44.30 for almost a 200-point correction. So I told you, every time there's a daily divergence, a potential daily divergence, pay attention to it, because usually if there's going to be follow through, it can be pretty significant. You know, we're talking 50, 100, 150, 250, 300-point moves whenever you see a nice daily divergence. Now, here's the caveat to that. Just because you have a daily divergence doesn't mean you're guaranteed this gigantic 2, 3, 4, 500-point push. This right here was a 500-point push from that double bottom bullish divergence on the daily. It doesn't mean because you have it, it has to work. Like right here, we started to call a potential divergence, didn't work, right? So there's going to be false signals, but when the signals that aren't false actually follow through, you're going to get yourself some amazing moves if you are a swing trader. So looking at the daily this morning, obviously super bearish looking. We're way below yesterday's lows and we haven't even opened this morning. And so things are looking pretty heavy just from that perspective. Outside of that, on the daily here, the most important levels that I see is obviously the major swing that we talked about around 44.11, and then we have that other major swing down here at 43.20, give or take 43.30. Those are the two major levels that stick out to me from this zoomed out daily perspective. There's other stuff in here that is very important, but just those two things are really sticking out to me from that bird's eye view. So let's go down into the intraday time frames here, take a look at where we are in terms of structure, and start getting some levels. So as you can see, yesterday we did get through the top of the structure zone around 45.20. We've pulled back now and we're about to come down to the bottom end of this new structure zone, which would be around 44.50. And we have a major eye level sitting somewhere around there. I think it's 44.54 or 44.53. So that would be the larger target to the downside this morning. Again, it's only about 20-30 points away from current market price, but that would be that strong potential structure zone that we're going to be pulling back into. And then a little bit deeper than that brings us down into the next major structure zone, down around 43.95-ish. In the way, that major swing high over here at 44.12 that I just emphasized on the daily chart. And that high is 44.1150. So that's what we have in the way. 1150. There's another little swing a few points below it, maybe 5 or 6 points below it, and then we're right into, like I said, 43. I forget the actual number, but we have it as an eye level. So that's what we have in the most immediate area here if it continues to sell off. And of course, if it gets through that 43.95 area, we're now down into the next swing at 43.67, and then the bottom of that structure zone is down around 43.30-ish. So that's what I see in the most immediate area here. The other thing is coming back up. So if the bulls do get strong this morning and get through the major structure zone around 45.20, what is the actual eye level that I have there? 45.13. So if we get up through 45.13 and we have our retracement at 45.17 there, if we get through there, we're back up into that second structure box above. And then we have all these little levels in between up there that we'll talk about on the 60-minute chart. So let's go ahead and go down and take a look at it here. So I've shaded some regions before I started the pre-market. And so let's talk about what we have above us if the bulls decide to just rip this thing higher this morning. We've got, again, we're holding our expected support around 74 to 76 in there. And if it comes back up, what are we looking at here? We've got 96.75 up into 98.50. And remember, 98.50 comes from all the way back over, I think over here. It was that major swing high back there that we were looking at as potential support yesterday. So we've got that little box of about a point and a half. And then just a little further is that first major swing. So if you zoom out and look at the whole picture here, what sticks out, in my opinion, if you just look, that major swing right there as we're coming back up would be the most relevant area of price that interests me, right? So seeing that would be, again, that swing low is 45.01 quarter. And then a little bit further, we're going to come up and test the previous daily low and the orange power level. So you see that's highlighted there. We also have a nice swing sitting right there, right? So let me see if I can get this little push in, bounced out, came back, bounced just in front of it. So coming away from that area and coming back into it right there, to me, would make sense to have some type of reaction. So we got that. And again, 45.13 is kind of the dividing line between those two structure zones. So, this little area, again, like yesterday, we said this kind of general box right here is going to be important to get through for any faith in a bullish breakout. So until we actually get through that general zone there, and let's just say basically the previous daily low up into this 38% retracement level at 17, and you can see in between those, we have a couple little major levels. Once we get through that, I'd be targeting up into 27 to 31 here. Again, the close of yesterday was right around 26, so coming up to close that gap is something we do see pretty often. So that is sitting there right at our minor eye level at 27. So that little box right there, also where we failed in the overnight. So that's our overnight high, and it's also 50% of the whole sell-off. That's going to be an important level as well. So keep in mind what we're pushing up into here. And if the bulls, for whatever reason, get really frisky and start pushing through 50% of this leg, we're up into 45.44.50 to 45.46. We've got 50% of the previous day, just a point or two above that. Could be relevant, but I'm looking more at that specific zone right there. And then any further, I actually have to get rid of that now because we're done with that swing. Any further, it's going to bring us right back up into this. 1 second here. 1 second. That swing is no longer important. So a little bit further up is going to be 55.50 again. And then from 55.50, there's that 45.66 level that we were watching 2 days ago. And then from there, from 45.66, we're then back up into our 74 area. That should sound pretty familiar. So I'll go ahead and highlight this out and put this on all my charts. So what do we say? 73, 72.50, 74.50, 2 points. Somewhere right in there. Got that on all the charts. And, you know, at that point, if we end up pushing all the way from 44.70 up to 45.70, 100 points higher, we'll come back and revisit the rest of the stuff. I can't just sit here and go forever, right? There's so many other levels, but that's what we have in this general area. On the flip side of things, if we continue to sell off, let's take a look at what we have below us here. So a little bit further down, and remember that some of the minor levels that are on the chart very well could work, but I want to highlight the main zones that pique my attention. So we have 67.75 there, but if it continues going, I'm looking at a potential reaction off 58.50, and if there is no reaction there, this little pocket 52 to 54 quarter. So that 54 quarter is that, remember, the beginning of the next structure zone. So we've got that little pocket right there. Any further, 45.50 is where we got a really strong bullish breakout to the upside. So that is one of our minor levels. Never know. But I'm, again, looking at the more highlighted regions here. So remember, the minor eye levels very well can work. So don't ignore them. So we've got this little pocket from 11.50 to 15 quarter. That is going to be interesting this morning. And then a little bit further, and unfortunately, I could probably highlight this whole area from 06.50 to 15.50 for just about a 9-point range. But I think each level distinctly is going to be important. So we do have 15, we do have 11. But then there is this major swing here that never has been tested. So we came up back on March 17th at the end of the day, pushed all the way up to that 44.06.50, got a major failure from there, and then ripped on right through and never came back. So that 06.50 to me looks pretty relevant, and that's why I said this whole box here looks interesting, but each level in between, each level that makes up that area could very well be interesting, you know, almost to the tick on each one. So watch those. And then a little further, we have the structure zone starting at 97 down into this swing right here at 94 quarter. So that major swing there. Again, another swing we came up, got a pretty violent failure from, and then went ahead and ripped and never came back. So that little pocket right there, to me, looks interesting as well. That is going to bring us down about, where are we now? 44.80. That'll bring us down about 100 points down into 43.97. Any further than that, I'm looking at 81. If 81 doesn't hold, I've got 67.50, the next major swing. That actually held nicely here on 2 tests, but we never really appreciably got hundreds of points away and came back. So I'm still watching that. And then we have 61 quarter and 48 quarter. At that point, we're now 150 points lower. We'll come back and revisit. I guess pay attention to this zone right here as well. 2450, again, the beginning of the next major structure zone up into the swing high. Actually, this swing here, let me just, yeah, that swing is very, very important right there at 26, let me get the number, 2675. So that little 43.2450 to 43.2675, again, looks also like a great potential support zone. So hopefully that gives you an idea of targets to the downside, targets to the upside, and some of the conditions that we want to see this morning. Again, getting through that pocket that we talked about, the previous daily low, the orange power level, and this general little zone right here is going to be important for any type of faith in the bulls. And then we're still not out of the weeds for the bulls. We need to get up through 27 to 31 here and then get up through 50% of the previous day. And we do have some levels that are all interspersed within there. So that's where we are this morning. I don't want to go ahead and give any strong bias right now because I don't necessarily have a major confluence of things, but I will tell you that we do have a bearish divergence from the overnight high. Just like we did yesterday, we have a bearish divergence off the overnight high on almost every time frame, including there's an argument on the daily, in my opinion. So a lot of bearish signals from there. Off the overnight low, not necessarily the strongest bullish signals, but again, anything's possible. So even with no signals, the bulls could rip it, and we want to be ready for that. We don't want to just disregard it and not be prepared for whatever is going to happen. So the market's going to open here in about 30 seconds. Remember that we do have, just looking, FOMC today. So it could be a slow and choppy situation until those minutes come out at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And that's it. So have a great day, guys. See you then. See you tomorrow.